Okay, looks like there's quite a few different leaks going on here. Obviously, you can see how much oil, like we talked about, the oil is everywhere. It's dripping down the valley and going over the bell housing of the transmission. This fitting could be the leakage point, but you see how the turbo on the side where the VGT plunger goes through is wet, and also it's kind of hard to show, but the fitting on top is there's a lot of wetness here too. So most likely this fitting is leaking, but when you see this much leakage and you see there's always going to be a little bit of wetness coming out of the turbo. This turbo spins very freely. It's not hard to turn, so that's good, but it doesn't mean that the pedestal isn't leaking. And with this much leakage, it's very hard to tell. So even though you really got to be very careful when you're doing this, I need to start this truck up in order to see where the leakage is coming from, because this is a pretty fast leak. So as soon as I start it up, I'm going to come over here and look for the leaks, and I assume it's coming from the top. But if it's also coming from the bottom at the same time, it's very possible I'm going to have to replace this turbo, because it's going to need a turbo pedestal. You could put the turbo back in, but this truck has 170,000 miles. Yeah, it's probably wise to just replace the turbo. All right, give you an update. Okay, you can kind of see that at the very base, you're developing more oil leakage there. That's a turbo pedestal leak. That's not good. And then up here, kind of hard to see, but there's really not a lot of fresh oil coming while it's running. Most of the oil is coming from right there at the turbo pedestal where they join. So you can see the new turbo. Hey Joe. So I cleaned up the valley, got turbo out obviously, and yeah, this was filthy. It's really nasty, all the oil. So wiped it down, vacuumed it out, everything I could do to clean up all the oil that was in the valley. So now it looks much better, obviously, but I'm ready to put the turbo in. So I just finished installing this new turbo, and obviously we had a lot of oil leakage in the valley, and you can see this area that was basically where the pedestal meets the block. It's where it was leaking. Wide angle. So I cleaned up the valley as best I could. It was pretty nasty in there. That's what you saw in the picture. But so I'm going to give this a first startup. Also, I've done the pan already too, because the pan was pretty nasty. Of course, it was just, as you saw in the first video, covered in oil. So let's go ahead and give this thing a start up, and we're going to see if it's leaking. Obviously, it should not be, but either way, we're going to check that. And obviously, it's got oil in it. That's important. You can also see that this has an updated braided coolant line, supply line. This is from Sinister Diesel. These are actually really nice upgrades for these lines, because normally the lines have a snap to connect fitting. This is a threaded JIC fitting now, and then of course it's braided here. They don't leak near. These are great. So I don't really care much for Sinister Diesel, but that's a really good product from them. So anyways, okay, let me go start this truck up. And also, just want to show how it looks like underneath before I do that. Okay, you can see the new pan is on there. And yeah, it's obviously pretty nasty. I wiped it off, but the new pan, and no more oil leaks. Of course, I haven't started it up yet, but it's got oil in there, not leaking. It was just leaking sitting also. The pan was definitely leaking in addition to all this extra upper leakage from the turbo. Okay, so let's go ahead and start this thing up finally. the exhaust pipes are working. Because you gotta do this just right. Otherwise you have an exhaust leak. You got one from the driver's side that goes in the bottom, and then you got the passenger side that comes to the top, and then you got the exhaust downpipe. So you got a lot of pieces back there that you have to do just right. Okay.